Right, Modesto wanted that meeting. Official. So, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Pleasanton Chamber of Commerce's 2025 forum. My name is James Cooper. I am the president and CEO. And I have a very brief role today, which is to introduce our committee chair, Lori Moffett-Felber. Lori, the meeting is yours.
Thanks, James. You might have a little bit more role. I just realized I don't have bios to read off on our two speakers today. So we're going to call the meeting to order. And do we want to go around and introduce everybody who's here really quickly?
Yes.
Just so you get a sense of who your audience is for our speaker group. So I'll start, and then maybe we can go around James, you've got the calendar and you can see who's in the room, maybe call on people, but Lori Moffett-Felber, Senior Vice President of Architecture with Dahlman Group Architecture Planning there in Pleasanton, and a Chamber Board member. So welcome everyone.
Okay, so we'll stay on the screen, and Alyssa.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Elisa Henrique, and I am a field representative for the Assemblymember. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Assemblymember.
Hi guys, I'm Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Kahan, and you have so much of my amazing staff here, which is so fun to see.
Thank you, Rebecca. Kim.
Hi, I'm Kim Damiani. I'm a certified financial planner with Summit Financial Group. I'm also a Chamber Board member and past chair.
Thank you. Estefani.
Everyone, is Stephanie Avila, Legislative Director for the Assemblymember.
And Jill.
Hello, everybody. Jill Buck, CEO of the Go Green Initiative and also current Chamber Board Chair.
And showing up as me on the Zoom call. David.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Dave Wong. I'm a chiropractor here located downtown. I am I'm part of the Pleasanton Young Professionals as the board chair.
Thank you. Pablo.
Pablo Garza, committee consultant for the Water Parks and Wildlife Committee. Assemblymember is the chair of that committee.
Thank you. Nice to see you. And Janine. Oh, you're muted, Janine.
Hi, everyone. I'm a little under the weather, so I'm going to stay off screen, but I'm the workability specialist for Pleasanton Unified School District and an advisor for Sunflower Hill.
Thank you, Janine. And now we'll go around the room, starting across from me. Andres.
Andres Ripa, the general manager for Stoneridge Shopping Center. Ken Norvell, sales director for CMIT Solutions and vice chair of membership for the Chamber Board.
I'm Juliette Don. I'm a corporate affairs representative with Chevron and Chamber member.
Good afternoon. I'm Sean Henley, Senior Vice President of Morgan Stanley here in Pleasanton, and I'm also on the Chamber Board of Directors.
Hi, Steve Baker. I'm with Baker Financial Consulting. I'm also the treasurer of the Chamber.
Bob Sullivan, retired civil engineer, and I'm also on the Chamber Editor Committee.
My name is Brad Hurst. I'm very experienced.
I'm Jan Batchelor, retired, past Chamber Chair.
And James Cooper, President and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. We have two more that just joined us. If you can introduce yourselves real quickly. We'll start with Mark. Mark, if you're there. Okay, we'll move over to Reed.
Hi, good morning. Reed Phillips, Beats Hospitality Group.
Thank you. Okay, Lori, the meeting is yours.
So we have two really great speakers today for everyone's enjoyment. Because we have two, we're splitting the meeting in half. So we'll have the first half for our assembly member, and then the second half for an update on Stoneridge Mall Shopping Center. So again, apologies, I don't have a bio to read, but maybe assembly member, you can give us a real quick rundown and then jump right into your presentation.
That's great. I do know my bio, so we're good.
I figured you would. Yeah.
Hi guys. Yeah, so I'm Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Kahan, and I live in Orinda and have for over a decade, and have the most important part of my bio is my 3 amazing children. I have a 9, 11, and 13-year-olds who are more than a full-time job, but then my other full-time job is as your assembly member, and I've been in that role since 2018. I started my career as an environmental regulatory lawyer, representing corporations doing their compliance programs. So an environmental lawyer, but also somebody who understood how complicated it is for businesses to comply with state, local, and federal regulations. So that's the lens that I like to bring to Sacramento. And then when I had my babies, I left the practice of law because it was just too hard, and became a law professor and spent about 8 years helping create the next generation of incredible lawyers. And now I represent you in Sacramento. And as you heard from Pablo, I chair the Water Parks and Wildlife Committee. Our major focus is obviously on California's water supply, although we get to oversee all state and local parks, as well as wildlife and endangered species protections. It's an incredible honor to be with you guys today. And I want to start by thanking you guys for everything you do for our community every day. I know that it has not been an easy couple years. First, we had the pandemic, and then inflation, and all of that makes it really hard to do what you do every day. But it is our small businesses that both employ the vast majority of Californians, but also keep our community the incredible, special place it is. My kids are always asking for me to come to eat your pizza and your ice cream in downtown Pleasanton because it is such an amazing place. So it's good to be with all of you. And so what I have been asked to talk about today is water, which is obviously incredibly important. We're coming out of a historic drought, and then this year saw what scientists had told me and others to predict, which was years of plenty and flooding. So atmospheric rivers are now the new normal. That is how we are going to get our water, which is requiring us here in Sacramento to rethink how we manage and store California's water supply, which is something that you in the Tri-Valley are ahead of us on, which is incredible. Interestingly, I will note that although I chair the Water Committee, which oversees California's water supplies writ large, the committee does not have jurisdiction over clean water. So some of the things that you guys have been facing in Pleasanton with your PFAS in your wells is actually the jurisdiction of another committee, but something that I've been heavily engaged in. I sit on that committee, and starting my career as a clean water lawyer, it's something I'm fascinated by and really do want to help move forward in California. So, I think that it's really important to sort of ground us in where we are in California's water. Although we had a great year, like I said, scientists were predicting that this would happen. And this is the weather whiplash that we predict for the future, which is future lengthy droughts followed by years of good. And so, it's also really important to remember that even in years like this, 1 million Californians lack access to clean drinking water and water they can shower in. Just last week, I was with the Tule River Tribe, one of California's native people, and they run out of water every July. They have no more drinking water for their people. And so, we do continue to have water problems even here in California that I think a lot of people aren't aware of. And then we look at what the future holds. And, Lawrence Berkeley Labs studies show that in just over 2 decades, we're going to have no more snow in the Sierras. And so, as you probably all know as Californians, like I do, the snow in the Sierras is our thing. We both enjoy it for recreation, but it's also where most of our water comes from. That snowpack is a huge part of our water and where we get it. And as it melts into our rivers, it provides for a lot of valuable water for California. And so we need to be doing everything we can to ensure that we're preparing for the future. And that means taking water from years like this, putting it into our ground. So we're doing a lot of work on how do we do better groundwater recharge in times when there are plenty and do it safely, because one of the things you all know is that groundwater is only valuable if it's clean. And so we want to do that groundwater recharge, not on dairy farms, for example, where pollutants would enter that water table, but instead places where we can get that clean water into the ground. And then also, how do we clean up our groundwater that already has problems like the PFAS contamination that we're seeing in Pleasanton, because every drop of water really is precious and valuable and needs to be protected. And then how do we build the infrastructure for those future water needs? How do we change the way we move and store water? How do we make sure when we move water, more water is moving efficiently? We have subsidence in the Central Valley, thanks to some of our groundwater issues, that's leading to less efficient movement of our water. We need to make sure we're lining our waterways and doing things that really make sure that as we move water in California, we're not losing it. So that's the work we have ahead of us. It is not an easy job that we have here in my office, but it's a really critically important one. And so, as I've undertaken understanding California's water system, one of the things that has become really clear to us is that our management of water isn't what it should be. And so, during times of drought, it is a shared resource, and it's one that we as a community need to come together and do the right thing. And I know that each and every one of us in times of drought start to do what's necessary, right? Take shorter showers, water our grass a little bit less, right? So that we aren't using as much water. And that's true not just of us as citizens of California, but of everybody in California. And so last year we saw that where we had asked farmers to use less water, where there were curtailments because we didn't have enough water for everyone to use 100% of what they had a right to. So we asked everyone to use a little bit less. We had farmers that were taking water openly and, sort of flouting the laws and the regulations, and everyone downstream was going to suffer because there was going to be less water moving for those folks. And so what we realized was that our enforcement tools weren't sufficient. The fines of taking that water were the cost of doing business, that the agency charged with going in and stopping people from stealing water didn't have the tools they needed to do it quick enough, because in times of drought, you can empty a river pretty fast. And so the 20-day process they had to comply with was insufficient. So we moved a piece of legislation that will increase those enforcement tools to ensure that we're all playing by the rules and everybody has the water they need. We also looked at increasing problem across the West. It's a really fascinating problem, which is outside investment interests and foreign countries coming in, seeing the value in what little water we have and taking it. They're buying it. They're not taking it. I shouldn't say they're stealing, because they're actually buying the land and pumping the water out of the ground, taking the water off our rivers. And we're seeing this, like I said, in Arizona, Colorado, California, and making sure that we don't have hedge funds and other foreign nations coming in and taking our precious resources. And so I partnered with Senator Hurtado, who is a senator from the Central Valley, because her community is really ground zero for this foreign investment of water, on what we can do to make sure that we are being truly honest when we say that water is a public good, that there's a human right to water here in California, and not allowing for what we believe is a gold rush for water here in the West, where we're going to see drought. And so we moved a bill that would stop the water profiteering and really bring it back to the uses that law says it should have. Let's be clear, law actually says you have a water right, but that there are certain ways that that can be used, and there are highest and best value for that water, and we need to return to that, and profiteering is not on that list. And so that was something that we're working on. That bill is challenging because we do have ways in which we allow and want people to be able to sell their water. For example, farmers during times of drought, when we want them to use less, we pay them for that, right? This is their business. When we don't have enough water, we want to be able to buy that water for people to drink, because maybe that's the highest and best use at that time. So we want there to be a market for water in ways that benefit all Californians, but also not outside interests coming in and trying to drive up the price of water in ways that it hurts ratepayers. So we are looking at how we can make that bill better and ensure that we're collecting the information we need to stop the water profiteering in the future. As many of you know, California is ahead of some of our sister states as it relates to that foreign taking of water, because we have the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act that was passed by my predecessors that really manages how we take groundwater out of the ground, allowing a community to come together, decide what their water resources are under the ground, work together to decide how to use those while also sustaining the groundwater, local control of that plan, which was a really critical piece of that law. And so it is actually helping us stop what we're seeing in Arizona, for example, where the Saudis have come in and just pumped those groundwater basins dry. We have a little bit of a tool there that we want to use to ensure we don't overdraft those basins and have sustainable groundwater to get us through dry times, while also ensuring that we're investing in floodplain restoration, which is really the best way for us to get water back into the ground, is allowing that water to move into the floodplain, go into our beautiful Mother Nature has given us incredible ways to store water underground, and we need to allow it to happen. So we're actually working on a bill to figure out how to do better floodplain management to allow water to go into the ground. There's work happening that I got to go visit and see, and it's amazing work, because as we saw last year, Mother Nature wins, right? And we build levees, we try to control the water, and the water wants to go where the water wants. And if you let it and you don't, and it doesn't do damage, it actually is, it goes into our ground, and that's some of our best reservoirs under there. So that's part of what we're trying to do. And not only is that good for our water stores, but it's good for nature. We're seeing birds return to those places that are migratory and need that water to drink. And so it's a win-win for both our agriculture community, our economy, and the environment, which is one of my favorite things, to be able to see everybody winning. And just Monday, the governor signed into law the infrastructure package, which I was really excited to be a part of. And that's really exciting because one of the things that we have coming our way is incredible federal dollars, which will do a lot of good, whether it's building manufacturing jobs in the chip space or allowing us to build out water infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, and clean energy infrastructure. And we needed to make sure that all of that could happen in the timelines necessary to get that federal funding. So we passed a package of bills that remove some of the red tape around building those projects that we really want here in California. I think one of the projects that will benefit from that is Los Vaqueros in our backyard. There's some streamlining there that I think will help us get that project done faster, which is really exciting. And at the same time, we were able to do that in a way that continues to protect California's most precious resources. I think that what we proved in that package of bills is that you can build big things, you can do it faster, and you can protect our environment. And again, I think it's exciting when we can find a win-win-win, and that package of bills did so. And lastly, I just wanted to point out, people are talking about our budget deficit. It's really important to understand that it is not a deficit, a structural deficit. We have enough money to cover everything. We just don't have as much as we had predicted we would have. So we brought in less than expected, but enough to really cover our bills, which is important. So we passed a budget that doesn't touch any of our reserves. In fact, it increases California's reserves, saving for a rainy day, which I think is very exciting. We were able to increase spending in our schools, which I know is a shared priority, or we all moved here, or not all of us, but probably all of us, for the schools. They are such a gem in our community. As a proud mother of school-age children, I know that firsthand, but also able to bring some dollars back home for the projects that are so critical to our community. And one of those was being able to invest in some of the PFAS cleanup in Pleasanton. So that had been something that the city council had come to me and said they really needed help with, was cleaning those wells. And we were able to bring them $1 million to help kickstart that work, which hopefully I know will cost more than that. There's also grant funding at the state level to help complete that work, but at least it's a start. So that's a little bit of what's going on in the water world as it relates to you and us and the state, but happy to take any questions.
Okay, well, we'll start with the first question here. Brad?
Okay, first of all, thank you for your service. The voters of California in 2014 passed a major water bond issue, which included the Sites Reservoir. The legislature, why has the legislature not, and particularly your committee, not been all over the last two governors to get the Sites Reservoir construction commenced?
Yeah, so we did an oversight hearing on that. And you guys, we are actually the perfect example of what can happen with that money. So Los Vaqueros is one of the projects that is going to be subject to that. One of the biggest hurdles to building those projects has been that it requires local matching funds. So as you guys know, a joint powers authority was formed to get the local funding for Los Vaqueros. So I think that that is going to happen, and it's really exciting. It was a joint powers authority between Zone 7 and Contra Costa Water, and I think East Bay Mud's a part of it, and others. And the problem, one of the main hurdles for sites is that they do not have that local funding. And so one of the questions that I will say that the infrastructure package we moved explicitly includes Sites Reservoir, removing some of the red tape for sites, but it doesn't, I don't think, go as far as to include that local funding, which is required to get the Prop 1 dollars. And so one of the things that we have talked about, although I believe this would have to go to the voters because anything that you do, we can't actually change without going back to you, is there a way to provide more state dollars instead of local dollars for projects that are, of statewide importance? But that was in the bond. And so the question would, again, have to go to you guys, but that has really been, as far as we can tell, one of the biggest hurdles to getting that project underway. And, Los Vaqueros is now with the JPA, I think, going to have that funding, but in certain parts of the state, that's a lot harder.
With all due respect, if you've ever been to the Sites Reservoir location, there's no way that area can come up with matching funds.
Right. No, and that's why the question really has become, can we do it? Right? Can the state do it? And I do believe, although we were looking at the question, that it would require, again, for the voters to modify what was passed. Because the bond itself required those matching funds.
Okay, do we have any other questions in the room?
I have another question then. Okay. this is not related to water. This is related to something that all of us face every day called crime. Crime is in the suburbs. It's not coming, it's here. And yet the legislation coming out of Sacramento does not punish crime. It actually encourages crime, but the legislation also tends to punish private citizens who want to protect their property and their families. What the hell's going on in the legislation?
You know, I'm one of 120, so I can't speak for every one of my colleagues and the bills they bring. And, you know, bills need a majority, most bills. I mean, some bills require 2/3 vote, but the vast majority of the bills on the subject you're talking about require a majority vote. I don't vote for all of them, but that doesn't mean they don't pass. And, you know, I will say that, you know, you brought up two separate things. Crime is obviously incredibly important. And, you know, you're right. I'm not going to say it's not. I live in our community too, right? So there's definitely crime in our community, and we're lucky that there's less, but it's, you know, it's happening. And so, you know, I don't know that I have a great answer for what policies we could pass that would change that. I know there's been a lot of conversation about propositions. Again, any proposition needs to be changed by the voters, not by us. That's just the law, to be honest with you. And as for, you know, our desire for people to not, I assume you're talking about a stand your ground law or something of that nature that exists in other states. You know, I think I'm a big believer, and this is something that the community knows. It's never been a secret. I am a big believer in gun violence prevention. I believe gun violence prevention is critical. And I think that, you know, more guns don't make us safer. I just think that we need to ensure that that's true across the board.
Okay, we've got two questions in our chat. We'll start with the first one from Reed. Can you give a couple examples of how water profiteering works?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. Most of the information about this has come out of investigative reporting. There's a documentary that just came out from the Center for Investigative Reporting that's fascinating on this. So it works in a couple ways. The most common way is to buy up land, and you don't have to buy much agricultural land. The Saudis in Arizona, I think, have maybe 20 acres, but because water doesn't stay under your land, right? If you have an aquifer, the water is spread out, but if I pump here, I'm going to get water that maybe is under your land. So one way is that you buy land and you pump the water out, and you may use it to grow alfalfa that's being sent to a foreign country to feed their horse or cattle, if you will. So that is one way. Another way is that what we're seeing and what we're trying to understand a little bit better is that some of these investment funds are buying up water rights, and then they're transferring those water rights to our public agencies that are wholesalers for water, right? So they have to go out and find the acre feet they need to serve their communities, and they're buying those from these investment funds that are buying the water rights.
Very good. Next question is from Jill. Is there any work being done to help people in areas with PFAS in their drinking water to have access to medical testing and monitoring?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that, but we can look into it. Sorry, Jill.
Jill and James, I think we can look into it.
Thank you. I would love to look into that. I had a chance last week to talk with Rob Ballot, who's the lawyer who started all of this. Nate Miley had him come in, and that was something that we were talking about. So I'd love to talk with your office about.
Yeah, and I don't even know. I mean, I'm assuming there is testing one could do, but I don't know anything about it. So, but I'm happy to learn more.
I've done it. So
okay, so you know, I can learn more from you.
And I know the lab in Sacramento that's kind of the nation's leader in this. So would love to have a follow-up conversation.
Great. And then I see Brian asked, how safe for drinking is Pleasanton water with wells being turned back on? And I will say that your mayor, who I don't think I heard that she's in the room, but she's been incredible on this issue. I have to say, a real leader. And they shut off your wells before it got to the point, you know, that I think they even were obligated to. So they've been really conservative in ensuring that they are cleaning the water. There's several ways to do it. One is blending, others are expensive cleaning, right? I think different wells in Pleasanton need different things because the testing is, you know, they're finding different things in the wells. But I really do think that the mayor and city have been incredibly conservative. And so I would, I think they're likely on top of it, but I don't know the answer specifically about what wells are being turned on.
Okay, very good. We'll go around the room one more time. Are there any more questions?
I got another question.
Go ahead, Bob.
Groundwater recharge is a big thing, especially in the San Joaquin Valley. There are a number of water banks, the Kern County Water Bank, but others. There are all kinds of activities going on to construct groundwater recharge basins. Why does it take 10 years to get one approved?
So, yeah, I don't know about, a 10-year approval process on a groundwater, but I will say that one of the things that we did in this infrastructure package was remove a lot of the barriers to approving those specific projects. Groundwater recharge was actually something that was a focus of that infrastructure package. So, one of the main barriers to some of these can be CEQA litigation, which can take years and years, as I'm sure you're all aware. And so one of the bills we passed requires a 270-day judicial review, so less than a year. Looked at that. We looked at other things. I'm a big fan of design build projects for our public works projects. They tend to be cheaper and faster. We authorized those for some DWR water projects. Looking at all the different ways that we can be creative in ensuring that we're being more efficient in how we get those projects done. And then there's a bill by my colleague, Assemblymember Soria, who represents, she's from Fresno, represents part of the Central Valley, that is working on the permitting process for those. So cutting some of the green tape there too as well. So we're doing a lot to try to cut that. I don't know, the specifics of what you're talking about, but I will say it is a focus of what we're looking at as we look at how do we store more of our water in years like this one, because it's reservoirs are important, but groundwater is such a great way to store it. It does not evaporate as quickly. It is really an important way to ensure that we have the water we need during dry years.
I got another one.
Okay.
What's your position on revisions to CEQA?
To revisions to CEQA? That's a really big question. So, I'll give you sort of my writ large answer, which is that, I'm an environmentalist. And I ran for office in part because I have 3 children that are inheriting this planet. And I think our biodiversity and our open space and all the things that I know it's another reason why many of us move to this area is the beautiful, beautiful nature that surrounds us. And so I think CEQA is a tool that is really important. But I also think it's a tool that, and so I think it's important that we do that review and we do the mitigation required if we build something to ensure we're protecting our precious natural resources. But I do think it's a tool that has been abused. And I think we've seen that. And so how do we ensure that it's both doing its job of protecting our environment and that we're able to build the things we need? And I think that's what we struck in this infrastructure package and we're looking to do more of.
Very good. Yes.
Assemblymember Bauer-Kahan, thanks again for talking to us today. I was curious if you could maybe give us a preview or your thoughts about what to expect for the August session.
Yeah, so we're, for those of you that don't know where we are on the legislative calendar, so we are going into recess Friday, and then we are in recess for about a month. All of our bills have to be passed out of policy committee by this Friday. So that means a lot of bills are moving this week. It's a very busy week, but so that's why I'm sorry I'm not with you in person, but at least we can make it work on Zoom. And then we will come back and those bills will go through the appropriations process first and then move to either not make it out or move to the Assembly floor and the Senate floor for a vote and have to pass both houses before going to the governor for his signature. You know what? It's interesting. I think that there will be less moving this year than a lot of people expected. A lot is being held right now as two-year bills. We're in the first year, so they can move next year when we start again. But I think we will do some big work on the things that matter most to us. So, continuing to look at how we solve California's homelessness crisis. This infrastructure package is part of a bigger question. There's a lot of bills moving on interconnection. Not something we talked about, but a really important problem we're having in California right now is all of our new needs not being connected by the utilities in an efficient manner. It's taking more than a year often to get connected to the grid if you have a new project. That's a real problem. So looking at sort of how do we continue to build California in the ways we need more efficiently. You know, I think there's a focus, one of the things that has been discussed and is really important, and hopefully we'll see bills making it to the governor's desk, is the fentanyl crisis, right? I mean, we're really aware of what is happening, and then we need to be doing things to end that crisis. You know, we had youth in our own community in our high schools, we're seeing go into fentanyl overdoses and the like. It's something that I think is all top of mind for us. So again, moving a lot of bills on that, but it'll be interesting to see this week. I think a lot of things are slowing down, and we'll have less on our plates in August than some may have expected.
Thanks.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Assemblymember. We really appreciate your time today, and we definitely want to have a chance to have you come back here later this year when dust settles a little for you there, and continue good work for Pleasanton and for your entire district. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys. I was just out at the fair with my family right before it ended, and it's, you know, it's fun to be out with all of you. It's a beautiful part of the district. So good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Lori, it's back to you.
Great. Thank you. Great presentation. And I didn't realize what a busy week it was for our legislature up there in Sacramento. So we're into the second half of our program today, and we'd like to welcome Andres Ripa to give us an update on Stoneridge Mall. He must be in the room because I don't see him on the screen.
Right here.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. So if, again, I don't have bios, but if you want to give just a quick introduction and then jump right into your presentation, that would be wonderful.
Sure. It's going to be hard to follow the presentation by the Assemblywoman, but let's see if I can match. Yeah, my name is Andres Ripa. I'm the general manager for Stoneridge Shopping Center. Before I got into this industry, I actually worked for a Chamber of Commerce in a business improvement district after college. So I love what you guys do. It's a good partnership with the community and the city. So I definitely kudos to what you guys do with everything. After I was there for about 3 years, I got into the industry with some board members who own several land parcels in San Diego. I'm originally from San Diego, California. I started managing 2 small properties in the LLC down by the border. It's called San Ysidro, California. I was able to be there for about 5 years. Was assistant manager, then became a general manager 2 years in after. After that, I came to Westfield. Westfield for 2.5 years, and then I moved up to the Bay Area about 1.5 years ago to work for Simon Property Group at Stoneridge Shopping.
How long have you been the general manager there?
1.5 years. I started December of 2021. So there's been a lot. I came in and there's been a lot of movement. It's been fun. It's been fun. So I'm going to give you a slide update, quick update with everything that's going on from operations to capital to numbers, minor numbers, and then a little bit of the development. There's a lot of movement going on right now, so we'll let you know. So Stoneridge Shopping Center, obviously this shopping center was built in 1979. It's been here for many years. It's been successful. It's had its ups and downs. Recently, it's had an exodus. I mean, everyone knows that. Exodus is as retailers leaving the center. That's 24 major national brands left. So what we're doing as a company is try to revitalize it, try to renovate it, rebuild it. So it's a step-by-step process. The good thing is we still have strong retailers. So some of our strong retailers, as you can see, we have Apple, H&M, Lululemon, Zara, Sephora, Fabletics, Ari, American Eagle, Victoria's Secret. So we still have strong brands within the shopping center. Apple, for example, is our bread and butter. Macy's, they do phenomenal. So they bring in strong numbers and they bring in traffic. We actually, as a real estate investment trust, we own several of the brands. For example, Starbucks. We own the Starbucks that's there. We own all our Starbucks in all our shopping centers. We own Forever 21. We own Reebok, Brooks Brothers, Aeropostale. So that's something that benefits us. It's an organization that we call within our own company called Spark. So we own those brands. It definitely is something because we know a lot of some brands unfortunately are going under. So that's the way to keep them afloat.
You own the entire chain or just the stores in your centers?
So Starbucks, it's only the ones in our centers as a franchise, but all the other companies we own direct.
You own the entire company?
Entire company, yeah.
You own all Brooks Brothers.
We do, yeah.
Wow.
We also own JCPenney, but 80% of JCPenney.
Wow.
So
That's cool.
it is. It's definitely Simon Property Group is very smart with what they do.
Yes.
Very successful REIT. So I'm glad it came. So they know what they're doing, but obviously Stoneridge has taken a little bit of a toll to get to where it needs to be.
Continuing to acquire retail properties?
Retail
brands?
brands at the moment, no. We've kind of essentially put a halt to the last one we acquired was Reebok, which is also definitely really good because we have a lot of them those in our premium outlets. So that's probably in the works right now. Stoneridge overall, we're $700 per square foot, which is actually really good for a shopping center. Our average is about 723 with all our shopping centers, which is pretty good. And that's we're 94% occupied, but we're 71% permanent tenants, 23% STL, which is temp tenants, which is 1-year leases or 2-year leases. Those 2-year leases help us out a lot. We're bringing it in. We're essentially keeping the center occupied until we fill it in with all our perm tenants.
That 94%, is that based on square footage or number of stores, or how does that?
So that's based on square footage, yeah. So we have, for example, the amount of GLA, general leasing area, that we have. Of that area, we have 94% of that occupied.
That's great.
So
that's hard to believe when Sears is gone and Nordstrom's is gone. And
correct.
those are huge footprints there.
But those are
Simon. No, those are, so we don't count those into the occupancy. So anchor stores, so for example, Nordstrom's owned by a separate company, and so is actually JCPenney, that land, and the Macy's women. We own the Macy's men, we own the Sears box.
Okay.
But when we talk about GLA, when we talk about occupancy, it's usually the inline stores that are about 15,000 square feet or lower.
Okay.
Square feet or lower.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah, no problem. But again, we have of the stores that are still open, they're top performers. We still have the 3 anchors. Obviously, you know that Nordstrom closed, which was recently acquired by someone else, and Nordstrom no longer owns it, and the Sears box, which is obviously it's an eyesore. But the 3 other boxes, which is JCPenney, it's having its issues, but it's moving along. And then we have the 2 Macy's actually, which rank second in the region of 24 Macy's, volume wise, and then it's number 6 in sales. So, which is really good.
really good.
They do get the traffic. They acquired Toys R Us, which is beneficial to them.
Yeah.
They have Backstage, was essentially like their Marshall Ross, if you will, on the first floor of the men's, and then they have the women's, home, and men. Obviously, we want to stay current. We haven't been able to do the remodel, but we're doing a lot of capital projects for the infrastructure of the shopping center. Things that are curbside appeal to HVAC units and so forth. We're updating our monument signs. We're going to be changing the facade of the entrances, which are very dated, look like they're from the 70s casinos. So we're trying to see how else we can bring life to the center, LED upgrades, which are a necessity. I mean, you walk in, you see yellow lights, recessed lighting, which is pretty embarrassing to walk through. So we're in the changes of that little by little. So but we're also bringing new brands. So these brands that we're bringing in are a few name brands, a lot of regional brands actually. All of those coming in, JD Sports, which is the Finish Line. It's a British company, came in, but acquired Finish Line. We're bringing these in GNC. All these will be opening this year. So we're really excited about that. Bank of Hype is it's essentially I'm sorry?
Is it clothing?
It's clothing, but it's also a shoe reseller. It's kind of like when you buy the Nikes and you resell them out. It's a really popular right now across the nation, actually. It's the Jordans and so forth, and they can go for $1,000, $500.
Yeah.
The name doesn't make sense to what the product is, but it's a shoe. They're shoes and clothing, and that's their own brand. So we're finding a lot of regional ones. ID Company is actually an Indian restaurant that's going to open up where the counter is, where the counter used to be, which is right next to CPK, the Cheesecake Factory. These guys are a local company. These guys came out of the tech industry and started their first restaurant in New Park Mall, which is in Fremont. They also have one in Antioch. These guys are starting a more robotic type of kitchen, if you will. That's how they're going to be cooking. They kind of like our Artly, which is a robotic coffee maker that we have. That's what they're doing with the restaurants, and they're being really well received, and it's something good for the community. Since our demographic is a lot of the Indian descent. Anderson's Bakery, we already have them, but I put them up there because they're going through a remodel. They're one of our most successful restaurants that we have. So they're going to reopen August 1st. So if you guys get hungry or want some catering or anything like that, or some bread in the morning, they're a good place to go. We have Boba Nation, actually. It's the 4th store they opened in the Bay Area. It's you think of just boba, but it's not. They have a plethora of just everything. They have from smoothies to acai bowls to health drinks, everything. So that's a good drink, right next to Forever 21. And then our 2 other ones, which is an OTA Health Made, which is massage chairs and Tokyo Japanese lifestyle. It's kind of like a Miniso. So we're excited about that, bringing more life to the center. A lot of things that we do is we do a lot of marketing events, we do pop-ups, we do community outreach. We partner, for example, with the Pleasanton Art League. They did an art show at the center. It was really successful. Which we did is middle school kids and high school kids brought their paintings, and they essentially made a vote on them, and then these kids get scholarships. So I think it's something really good that we partner with. These guys are very, very creative. So my respect to them. We have a back to school bash. It's essentially it's backpack giveaway, if you will. We partner with the Green Education Foundation partnership. We have them on site. They're actually the green bins that you can donate clothing to. But we're gonna have that actually on July 21st. We do different things like live art activations. People are painted in the center court. It's actually gets great exposure to these artists. People can buy them or can get classes from them. So it's we're trying to help out, give back. Other things we do, food trucks. Food trucks are always fun. We're doing one-offs right now. We used to have Food Truck Mafia, which is a huge event, and right now we're just doing 1 by 1, and it's something a little bit different to the center.
Where is that?
We put them in between Cheesecake Factory and P.F. Chang's.
Okay.
Just in the parking lot right there where we have Uber pickups. And people like it. It's well received. Fun Box pop-up, which is a huge inflatable. If you guys want your kids to have fun or grandkids, it's going to be located in our parking lot A. That's going to run from August through November. So it's a good something to get the kids out and have fun.
Andres, on the food trucks, any comments from your interior restaurants regarding having food trucks outside of them?
Not yet. So we're catering, or we're actually not. We're bringing in food trucks that don't bring competition to them. So anything that's not already in the center, we bring.
Okay.
And then we cross promote with our other tenants that are retailers. So no, not yet. We make sure that because we don't. Then it's going to cause a huge issue. Yeah, huge issue. And then we basically does Santa Claus, huge events, Easter, the Nutcracker. Nutcracker events, if you guys like Nutcracker, they'll probably be doing one in December again. It was very successful last year. We have that in Center Court. And then a Tesla parking. We use the garage actually at the Sears garage. That was a 2-level for just strictly new Tesla vehicles. But yeah, so it's something fun. So we do a lot with the community. We do a lot with different organizations, but obviously everyone wants to know what's going to happen to Stoneridge. What's the future development? So we have different, I guess, developments in mind, different ownerships. We own about 70% of the land, and that's essentially going to be phase 1 of the park. And I'm going to stand real quickly so I can show you. So this area right here, we're going to call it phase 1. It's a residential development that we're going to do. It's about 360 units. It's going to be located in parking lot C. We own the land entirely. So it's our goal is to have it start within 2 years. We've been working with the city. You've seen the framework project that's going on with the city. There's a lot of permits involved. We have developers that do that. They're actually on site yesterday. So it's going to take a while. There's a lot of permitting, just other issues, but our goal is to have that ready within the next few years. The other portions of it, we own Sears. Our goal is to make that an outdoor pavilion with restaurants, entertainment, and so forth, and then an additional residential project. So, but the thing is, we're trying to collaborate with the Nordstrom land, which is not ours, and the JCPenney land, which is not ours. So that's something that's going to take a while, and they're trying to figure out because these landowners have different questions and different plans, but they have to go through Simon in order to actually execute it.
What's going to happen to the Sears garage that's all Tesla now?
Demoing. So right now we rent it to Tesla.
Okay.
On a year-to-year
That's
basis.
gone, and that's where the center is going to be.
Correct.
Pavilion.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So that will get demoed. The entire building of Sears will get demoed.
Okay.
So that's our goal. Obviously, there's still a lot of negotiations to be done.
What's the residential projects doing?
Meaning what?
Like you said, there's gonna be some residential areas.
Yeah, so they're gonna be apartments. So they'll go from either 1 bedroom to 3 bedrooms, studios as well. Prices we don't know. We're just gonna match the market right now. We're still analyzing everything.
So how will we separate it from the mall? Tenants like you
walk in the mall or something, or? They would, so there's gonna be, so there's gonna be parking lots here still, in that section, it's gonna have its own garage. So everyone's gonna be able to dedicate it to essentially their home. Our goal is for people to live, work, play, stay in the area, eat and so forth. So that's something we want to give life. We don't want people to essentially be driving. We have the BART right here, if they want to go anywhere. Obviously we will have a garage for the parking, but we want everyone to stay within. That's where we're trying to live it up with more restaurants and more entertainment. And that's why we want to add this portion of it so they can just feel like they're at home and hanging out here at the center. Same with the other locations. A lot of this is most likely going to be residential, and it's going to have a connection into the shopping center.
Is there going to be grocery and drugs?
That's something we're working on. There's nothing set in stone. It's a lot of, we're definitely looking into. How's security? Good. So they will definitely have security. Right now, we have a lot of security on site, and we're working even more because there's a lot of crime. A lot of grab and runs, that is. Nothing assaults or anything like that, but we do have a lot of grab and runs, unfortunately. There's a lot of rings, criminal rings that come out, but we're adding more cameras. For example, we added 3 live view cameras, towers that is, in the parking lots, because they focus right on to all 3 of our main entrances, and they can read license plates. So we have a good partnership with PD. Whenever anything happens, they come out and we just shoot the video. Once PD comes, we give them the videos, and it's actually very, very efficient.
When you have these rings of criminals, are there a lot of repeat offenders? I mean, what's the deterrent? That's kind of like a question I think Brad posed, the laws these days.
No, yeah. So sometimes they're just one-offs. I can't give you a statistic in regards to how many are repeated, but there are some. But the good thing is PD, it's really hard to prosecute. So what they ask us to do is get as many reports completed as possible. And that's how they build a case. So that's why we're trying to tell all our retailers, make sure you report it to PD. Once you do that, we'll give you all the footage, we'll give it to PD, and they create a case and hopefully arrest these individuals. And they have. So it's difficult, but we're trying to do what we can, what we have.
Do you use facial recognition?
We do not, but we do have cameras that would take pictures of individuals when we know who they are, and we post them up in our own offices. We like together. We
never go to the mall.
Not anymore.
This is picture window.
That's right.
You've got 3 property owners out there, right?
So we're about 5. So we have Simon, and we have a partner which owns the land we own, and then it's AEW, and then we have the Nordstrom owner, who's actually 3 companies acquired it. So it used to just be one Nordstrom, but now it's 3 companies that bought Nordstrom, and then you have one company that bought JCPenney land.
Okay, all we've heard about for the last year is this great plan for the whole mall area, housing, blah, blah, blah. Who runs the show out there as a total project? Who runs the project?
You mean the operations or the project or the development?
No, who is running it through the city process?
The development
Who is
project.
driving it?
So we have.
There has to be a leader on a development project.
It is.
Who's the leader?
Our project, our developer, he's essentially our president of development. His name is Chuck Davis. Chuck Davis is our developer for Simon Property Group, but he's negotiating with all the other companies.
Okay, so he's the developer for the 360 units.
He is, yeah.
Is there anyone over the entire project?
Oh, that's also Scott Davis. I'm sorry, that's Chuck Davis. Chuck Davis is our main developer. So he's the one negotiating with the Nordstrom owners. Okay. He's the one negotiating with the JCPenney landowners. And he's also talking to Macy's. But Macy's right now, obviously, they own their land, but they're not really going to keep it Macy's. So Chuck Davis, he is our developer. And he's based out of the Bay Area. He moves around everywhere, but he does a lot of our development projects throughout the nation. But he is doing this.
So he's coordinating with the Nordstrom and the JCPenney folks.
Yes, he's the man,
have some sort of a unified.
That's correct, because we have an REA, which is a reciprocal easement agreement. That's essentially to our benefit. So that's something that we're working with, and he's negotiating all of that.
Another question, you've got this Simon property, and then you've got the outlet mall, which is also a Simon property.
That's correct. That's a premium outlet bar.
What kind of relationship do you have between the 2 facilities?
It's really good. So on the operations side, we have a really good relationship with leasing as well. If they need anybody from us, or if we're asking them, talking to them with another retailer, we have a great relationship. All our we have a mills portfolio, a premium outlet portfolio, and a regional mall portfolio. Even though we're on different styles of malls, a mills is like the great mall. Great malls, we call it the mills because it's entertainment based. The premium outlets, it's all outlets, it's lower pricing, and they're very successful actually because they're marketing and bringing in a lot of brands like Prada, for example, they have Gucci. And then us, regional malls. Regional malls are the ones that, like Stoneridge, for example, like Santa Rosa, even Stanford's considered a regional mall, but it's a high-end regional mall. So, but yes, to answer your question, we have a really good relationship with our premium outlets. And
Do you still own Sun Valley?
I'm sorry?
Do you still own Sun Valley Mall?
So I'm going to say yes and no because we're in the process of acquiring, or we acquired the prior owner. Who are the owners? They actually owned Stoneridge in the past, so we own a percentage of it, but we're not fully owners. Sorry, yeah.
Build it.
So Taubman, we acquired it from Taubman, but we're not full owners, so they still manage it. So we don't have any operations with them yet, fully. But SFPO, yes.
You mentioned that Macy's owns their land. Is it true that most Macy's or all Macy's own their land? Do you know?
A lot of them do. Some of them are gross leases, like the men's Macy's that we have here. We own the land and they have a ground lease. So some of them are ground leases and some of them they own. I can't tell you a percentage of how many of them they do own.
How much parking does Macy's own? I mean, I know the stores.
So this Macy's, we own it. So overall, we have 6,667 parking spaces throughout the property. Macy's owns essentially this portion right here and this building.
Oh, that's all they own.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in parking lot. This is 10X Genomics, which is they're essentially almost done with it, and they're done actually. Yeah, we met with their VP the other day. They gave us a tour. Well, let me start. They built this portion of it. This is gonna be later on, but they finished that, and then she said that the rest of it. She didn't give me a timeline on it, but the main building is done. And that brings in around 700 employees.
Who did you say owns Macy's Women's?
Macy's.
Macy's owns Macy's Women's.
They do, yes.
Macy's owns Macy's Men's, but they lease the property.
The ground lease, yes,
ground
that's correct. But the development, where we're gonna get there, and we also want to remodel the mall itself, but that's later on. So it's a huge process in order to get this done. But it's fun. We're trying to work with what we have. We're bringing in new tenants, giving it life. So hopefully you guys go shopping. If you guys have any questions, other questions, please let me know.
Let me open it up to the online.
Are you done with your part of the presentation?
I am, yes.
Okay, just want to make sure we didn't interrupt.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Good. It's a little quick synopsis. Hopefully you guys.
Okay, so do we have any questions from our online audience? There's a thank you. Great presentation from Jill.
Well, I have a question. I was a couple of weeks ago, I was in Dallas and I went to what I would consider our premium mall, North Park. You've been familiar with them. I don't know if Simon may even own it for all I know.
It's my understanding.
And it's got all the big stores, Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus, Dillard's, Macy's, and then it's got, all of the smaller stores, but the place was packed and the place was full as far as storefronts. There were very few empty spots. Why would a place like that be, so, for lack of a better term, vibrant versus Stoneridge, which seems to be kind of going downhill? Why is the market different there than
because
here?
of all the Californians that have moved there.
Oh, yeah,
it's a possibility. Maybe they don't have major competition around them.
It's their outlet mall.
And they have the brands that people want. So if they're in an area that's their major mall, like for example, we have a lot of competition. We do have the premium outlets. We do have City Center. We have a Walnut Creek, which is Broadway Plaza, Great Mall. So I'm assuming that's what it is with them. However, with us, Stoneridge Shopping Center is actually in prime real estate. It's in between two major freeways. So they're trying to figure out. I mean, obviously they're not going to get rid of the asset. They love the asset. They just need to figure out how they're going to improve it. And it's really difficult when you have other landowners involved. Sure. So I don't know if Northgate's fully owned by Simon. I can't answer that, but Stoneridge is not. So it makes it a little bit difficult when it comes to development. So maybe that answers another portion of the question. Whenever we share partners, it's more difficult, of course. There's different approvals and processes.
Any other questions around the table?
Okay. Andres, you've been very candid and complete with your answers. We appreciate that. unlike the assembly member who didn't answer the
Oh,
question. You've
okay.
been great.
Well, thank you. I'm answering as best I can. What I have
You've
here.
been fine. Thank you.
Thank you though for being here. Appreciate it.
Lori, back to you.
Well, thank you for actually the two great presentations. I see the Assembly member and her staff has left us today, but thank you for giving us the update on Stoneridge Mall. And I think that's all we had. We'll be back with another pair of great speakers in September.
Yes.
And so watch for that information to come out. And thanks everyone for joining. Any last words, James?
No last words in particular, other than my standing, which is have topics, suggestions, things that you would like to hear or see covered, please bring those forward. We have 2 months between meetings. We have time to find good speakers and make sure we have good content. So please do. Thank you, Lori.
Great. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Julie, here's my
Okay, great.
information. I'll